There is a moment in every life when you decide to rise, to stand taller than your fear, to speak louder than your doubt, to chase the vision that sets your soul on fire. This is that moment. And here, we walk it together with stories that awaken, voices that inspire, and truths that set you free. This is Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald, where hope has a voice, and that voice is yours. And welcome to the show, everybody. Hey, look at that. Tricia is here. She's been away for a couple of days, and she is back. She actually has her voice back, which is really a good thing. And so, Tricia, how are you?
I'm doing great, Kevin. I am so excited to be back, especially after having a few days down. Sometimes I think that that's what it takes for us to really realize how much we are in gratitude of living every single day and getting to do things. And I got caught up so easily in well, I didn't achieve this today and I still have to do that. And oh, I'll put that on next week's list. But really, just to get the option to think about doing those things for the day is really a blessing. So having my downtime made me miss this 10 times more. And I'm very, very excited to be here with Tricia Parido today. And she has just the most beautiful message, as so many people do, sharing their stories. So welcome, Tricia, and how are you?
Thank you. Well, I am also equally blessed and gracious to be here and also, just to fill the space that I do in people's lives.
The work that
Very
you do is really quite extraordinary. And so
good.
people can follow along, Rochelle. Let's give them her websites so that they can follow along with us as we go.
Yes, her first name Tricia and then last name Parido is PARIDO.com. Go check that out. And then they kind of link together, as we'll talk about a little more. She also has turningleavesrecovery.com. So really, just to start off the conversation, I'm curious as to what got you into the journey of doing the work that you do.
Oh, that's a big question. I mean, it's a really long journey if we started at the beginning, because,
Of course.
today I can reflect back and see how everything in life was leading me here. Um, but to keep it to keep it brief and unboring and palatable, right? I went on a journey for myself, a recovery journey for myself. And in that journey, I uncovered lacking spaces for me, right? And so I had a hysterectomy at a really young age. And so in that hormonal deficiency developed generalized anxiety disorder. And being a child of the 70s and 80s, right? Like I had a pretty healthy relationship with alcohol. And I'm saying healthy very sarcastically. But, it served a lot in my life pre 26. So I'd say early adolescence through about 26 years old when I experienced, traumatic events off and on in my life. And so because it was such a prevalent thing in my life, like it was easy to lean into that for trauma drinking. But this isn't what led me to the journey. It was inside of a great, wonderful life with a house full of wonderful children and an amazing husband that when I developed the generalized anxiety disorder, I was prescribed, like we almost, like a lot of us are, we're given a prescription for whatever our ailment is. And that prescription was Xanax. And I was prescribed it over the course of 5 years. And so the synergistic effects of the alcohol and the Xanax, although not combined to, have some big party life, because I was, way beyond that at that point, really created a space where I needed to detox and kind of find a stabilization. But so I leaned in, and one, I wanted to find out what happened, like why. So I had to go learn the physiological effects of drugs and alcohol, on the body. And so that just started this whole huge passion. but I also, as a grown adult, right, like was really observant in the standardized treatment process, and really noticed and identified where there were huge gaps for me as a human being, but then also huge gaps for others. And so I went on this journey, and I studied, process behavioral and chemical addiction, while getting my behavioral psych degree. And anyway, I started uncovering different methods and modalities and theories that when you learn more than just the theory and you find that practical application in your life, what great things actually emerge. And so, I went into that journey, and ended up writing 7 different programs for my private practice, and just have really been leaning in there. I originally started at what I called the treatment transition to life space. People, you get discharged, and it's like, hey, go find a home group and do some therapy, and there's nobody there to teach you how to use it. So I really focused on that assertive continuum of care at the beginning, and then energy is energy, right? So as my life
Mhm.
continued to grow and change and morph and flourish, and I just really, mm, from a behavioral and a psychological space, just was experiencing living so much different. I started getting phone calls like, "Hey, I don't have addiction, but I wonder if you could help me." And so this started that journey. And so it's been a beautiful dance, a little over a decade, probably, 10, 12 years of really helping people understand and identify how emotional agility really affords you the capability of
Mhm.
experiencing living without all the stress and anguish and bitterness, I guess, if you will,
Yeah.
and the poor coping, because coping isn't what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to experience, not cope, right?
Mm. Yep. Yep.
Anyway, I hope that answered your question.
Perfect. No, that's
And
perfect, especially because we find reliance on those things, and we should only have to rely internally on ourselves. That's the key.
so, Tricia, was it a little glass of wine in the evening that started you off, or was it a 151 rum, or then made you fall over, or what was your
Well, okay, it depends upon which season of my life you're talking about. Um, like I said, there was my trauma drinking years, right? Early adolescence, young adulthood, trauma drinking years. But when I started the journey of what led me to my work, no, right? Like it wasn't, it wasn't that. But I'd say, I first picked up when my dad was killed suddenly in a traumatic accident when I was 12
sure?
years old.
And,
Um,
and I'm sorry for your loss, by the way.
yeah.
Yeah.
It was like I was looking around the room, and there everybody, all the adults in the room, and had beer and cigarettes. And so I
Yeah.
grabbed a 6 pack and pack of cigarettes, and away we went. And so I kind of learned that was, good in those types of situations.
Yeah.
Sure.
I have to tell you a story. When I was a baby, and this
Mhm.
goes all the way back, and then we have to take a little quick break because we need to reach out to somebody who's reaching out to us. But um, when I was a kid, and they used to have Super 8 project or film that you could take a film with Super 8 cameras. And so they took a film of my parents having a party, and the party was everybody was surrounding by the couch, and I was a baby, and I was crawling in and amongst the people and all that kind of stuff, sitting in the middle and this is how it was back then, but sitting in the middle of the coffee table was a half gallon of Jim Beam that was half gone, and everybody was drinking Jim Beam, and everybody had a cigarette in their hand, and so then that's just the way it was, and that's how a lot of us grew up. And
What? Pass the bottle.
Pass the bottle, and it wasn't a Gatorade. It was something a little stronger than that.
Yeah.
But Tricia, have you ever been to Kenya?
No. Ooh, I would
Do you
love
want to
You know
go?
what? You want to go? Because we're gonna have to go, because this is Samuel. He's got a program in Kenya. Rochelle, tell us about him just a little bit.
Yes. Hello, Samuel. We love you. We love you. You're in your community. Samuel is running a community in Kenya to help children be able to eat, have the things that they need as necessities for life, and is now also starting a new program, being able to provide a education system for them. We got his pictures that they have sent us with Positive Talk Radio, and we absolutely love them. We love all of you guys. We're here to support you. Thank you for listening in. And I really, really hope that you can take something from this message, Samuel, and share it with all the little ones. I'll be there
So
soon.
so Tricia, you're being heard by a whole village in Kenya. And they sent us yesterday. Tell us about the picture they sent yesterday with our logo, Rochelle.
Yes, they have three pictures that they sent us of a video where the kids are in line and they're waiting to get their food. And they're probably so tired. You could just see it in their eyes, waking up for the day. And they're holding these little posters that say Positive Talk Radio from Kenya. And we truly love you guys from Kiberia, and we're here for you always. So please stay tuned. And this is why we do what we do, as you can probably see, is because this message resonates with more than just the person next door to you, or the person at the gas station, or somebody maybe a few states away. It's everywhere around the world. We're going through these things, we're working together, and that's why we need each other to be here to continue to do the work that we're doing, like Samuel is doing, so that we can uplift the world, because those little changes create domino effects. So that's what we're here for.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
There are so many really cool, wonderful people in the world doing great things, and you're one of them. Congratulations on the work that you're doing, and you're helping people. I assume that your client base is predominantly women, or I could be totally wrong.
I would say, I have seasons where, men come in. I love working with men. They're a unique, kind of client. They're usually quite focused. But yes, right. I would say right now I'm predominantly women. And Rochelle said something a minute ago that I think is very worth leaning into, and that's the reliance on things outside of us to bring us peace, joy, comfort, relief, value, validity, worthiness, right? And that's so true. And most of the people that I work with, they are looking to not do that anymore. Whether that thing that they're relying on is other people's validation or approval, or if it's their own perfectionist needs and they need that, gold stamp of, approval, or it's that social media, man, I gotta be, influencer status, or, I've had a big stressful week. I'm going to go sit down with a 12 pack, or, I'm feeling sad. I'm going to, bring Ben and Jerry's with me to the couch. And, so we're doing all of this stuff. We're giving things outside of us emotional purpose and meaning in our life, instead of allowing ourselves to sit in and move through them, instead of experiencing. And that's where that, that coping comes in. So if, you're sitting there and there's an emotional purpose for the glass of wine that you just poured, it's the inappropriate relationship. If there's an emotional purpose for the Amazon shopping cart that you've got going, that's an inappropriate purpose for the things that are in the cart. And anyway, I just wanted to make sure to, look at that.
Well, and you are a
Well,
young person. Oh, go ahead, Rochelle.
no, I was just going to say, Kevin, that's powerful too, because we do it with positive things too. And that's where our mind maybe gets lost in, is, well, I'm going to celebrate this. Well, I did really good. Well, I deserve this. Or I haven't seen my friends in a long time, type of thing. And I'll mention something when we come back from the break that will bring that full term. But go ahead, Kevin.
Oh, I was just going to say, you are a younger person, but you've been on the planet a little bit of time, and you've had the ability, and I want to talk about this when we come back. You've had the ability to see the experiences of your life work, both the good and not so good, have worked to benefit you and to create the person that you are today, who is able to then turn around and help people see in their own lives the things in their world that are happening for them and
Yeah.
not to them. And I'd love to talk more about that when we come back. We're talking with Tricia
Parido.
Tricia Parido, go check it out on
Parido. And go
No,
check out her
I
website.
mean yes, triciaparido.com. You can also take a look at what we touched into with her recovery, which is turningleavesrecovery.com. And don't go anywhere because this conversation is just about to get real good.
And we just loaded this up yesterday. This is something that we call points to ponder, and it's relevant to our discussion. And so I would love to play it right now. Here's another point to ponder by Positive Talk Radio. A woman spent years hating the reflection in her mirror. One day, she whispered, "I am enough." Day by day, her reflection became her friend. Self-love begins with the words you tell yourself. Speak gently, because you are listening. This is brought to you by Positive Talk Radio, where stories of hope come alive. And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald and Rochelle. She's right there, and let's see if she can pronounce Tricia's last name now.
Yes, Tricia Parido is her name, not Parido.
Well,
Or am I wrong? Am I still wrong? Okay, maybe I'm not a
You'll
good
get it
reader.
by the end. It's Parido, like the stone.
Parido.
Parido. Tricia Parido. I always want to say Parido, but
But
You
just
and
because
everybody
you
else.
wanted to eat Doritos along with having, your anyway. But Tricia, I wanted to touch bases with you about the experiences of life. We tend to make them an individual thing. This was good, this was bad, and this sucked, and this was awesome, and stuff, rather than look at it as the culmination of all of our life as to why we are here and the things that we are here to learn so that we can live the life that we were, by our own design, in my opinion, designed to live, and to create a place for us to be kind and to be loving and to be caring and to get past all that stuff. So I can look at my life and I can see how it all played together to get me to where I am today, to talk to Tricia and also Rochelle. Is that how it worked for you as well?
Absolutely. I think everything in life, people ask me often, like if you had it to do over again, would you avoid those certain things that you had to endure? And my answer is always no. And because it has literally made me who I am today. And I can see, and I was listening to a podcast today with Ed Milet, and I was listening to it, and it really it just awakened inside of me like this thought of, it all had a reason and a purpose, and if it hadn't have been me, right, it would have been somebody else. But my personal makeup, right, like that kind of person that I can look back and see that I've been an emotionally agile person my whole life. I just didn't have the education to tie to it, to bring it to life for others until much later in life. So I've been leading by this example for a long time. And what I mean by that is, even though I have lots of stories of traumatic events from, the age of 4 to 26, whatever, right? From 4 to 26, in that time period, I have tons of beautiful stories, lots of accomplishments, and tons of joy. And from 26 to 43, there was a lot of hard things, a lot of, growing opportunities, and big emotional things to handle. Our oldest daughter had leukemia her freshman year of high school. Like, that was a big journey for the whole family. So, but in that, there was also tons of joy and growth. So even though I was presented with this physiological wake up call of, all of this stuff that you're putting in your body is poison, it's not even just all about the alcohol. There was a lot of other diagnoses that I've been given, and through my life: rheumatoid arthritis, mixed connective tissue disease, chagrin, gastroparesis, erythromelalgia, all things that, through my own ability to be emotionally agile, but also know how to hear what my physical body is telling me, and I can bring this full circle back to a super young age, I've been able to remove those autoimmune diseases from my body by listening to how my body responds to food, prescription medications, yada, yada, yada. And so I've been able to do that. Well, that highlighted for me just how much I would have been in tune with my body my whole life. Because when I was 16, my biological clock was going off. I could just feel it. I could sense it. I knew that it was my opportunity to have a child. And so I had my son. After him, I lost two. And then I struggled for 10 years with my physical health, had several near-death experiences that led to that full hysterectomy. That then changed, my central nervous system and how things function, which led me down another learning journey. And it's all connected. And so when we can sit in and move through what life gives us, because what we are given is meant to be experienced, not avoided. And I still work on my anxiety today. Generalized anxiety disorder, but the only anxiety that I have left is I call it kind of physiological, right? Like, it's when I'm a passenger and I'm things around me. Anyway, it's sensation. So I'm still working on that. But for me, I think that fear in those spaces has more to do with faith and belief and trust than it does anything. And so it's just that signal to me that there's still, there's still things to lean into and move through. So anyway.
Tricia, if I may ask you, because this is coming through and I'm a little curious, do you think that maybe people avoid the lessons of life? And I mean, how you're saying everything is an experience, you can push against it, or you can take it as a lesson and like actually grow through everything you go through. Do you think that maybe it's hard for people to be willing to see those lessons and take them as a challenge to move forward because of the fear of authenticity of themselves?
Yes, we have lots of conversations about that fear of the authenticity or being seen for who I really am in my Monday night group that I host. Because people are, I have social anxiety, and I've got to show up, I've got to put on and I got to have the face, and and inside I'm like this, and I'm freaking out, and my energy's like this, and so I'm nervously at the hors d'oeuvre table and getting desserts, and I got to have the little something to do with my hands, and so sure, because so I always ask them, like, what's the biggest, scariest thing that could possibly happen to you in that space, right? Like,
Yeah.
if people are just downright mean, all you got to do is turn around and walk out the door and leave. Like, so how can we sit in and move through that so that you can see you don't need all of this distraction and noise to make it okay? And so it's a pretty big process to go through to break it down and to get it to calm down. But so there's that that fear of being seen for who I really am, like it's some, so there's a lot of self-acceptance work that has to go on there. And sometimes it's just, we need to learn how to sit back when we're in environments that tend to make us uncomfortable and just observe. And, starting with where are the doors, where are the windows, where's the exit? And then also just observing, what are the conversations? What is everybody's demeanor? And so if we do that long enough and we start to feel, safe and secure, then we can start working on the voice that actually enters a conversation, because people are afraid to do that also. I don't have anything to add. Okay, cool. But you can still ask more. You can ask more questions, right? And continue learning more if you don't have anything to add. So there's ways. And so it's again, it's a journey, and everybody's unique. But I also think people are afraid of, and there's a whole blueprint system, but I would like to just kind of hone it in. But there's a fear of that is, of the pain, whatever that pain is going to be. Whether I stumble on a word and somebody laughs, or I'm underdressed, and whatever that fear is.
Reality, really.
Yeah. And it's like, well, okay, but we don't need to be fearful of it. Right. Like what's the worst thing that's going to happen? If it's a life-threatening situation, well, let's sit down and not go. Right. Like, no, like I'm not asking you to jump off Mount Everest without a rope and and try to fly on your own. And so I get it. And I've lived with a lot of, those kinds of panic, fear, anxiety type things. And it's really, asking yourself this, like, how do I want to see myself experiencing living? And how do I want to experience my environments? But also, how do I want to be received inside of those environments? And so most people don't know who they are. Most people don't know what their values are. Ask them, like, hey, what are your values? And so, because they're too busy looking out here. I want what that person has. And that's cool to want your own version of what somebody else has and to create your own pathway that's going to make your version of what it is. But nobody wants to do that. They want the shortcut. People want to say, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. I'm like, I can't do that. Like, I'm not living your life. Like,
I tell Kevin that all the time. Kevin, just tell me what to do. And he's like, nope. Yep.
Yeah.
Nope, you got to figure it out for yourself, kid. That's one of the things. And Tricia, I want to go big picture here for a moment, because you said something that I'm going to take issue with. And that was, if it wasn't you, it would be somebody else. I fundamentally disagree with that because, and here's why. Before we were even born, and this is not unique to you or me or Rochelle, this is every human on the planet. Before we were even born, we had a mission and a stated purpose that we wanted to create when we were here. And so everything in our life, including the parents that we were born to, the DNA that we have, all of the things that we have created over that time, was all by divine purpose through us to create the life that we wanted. And if everybody could recognize that they were a unique and special person, and had their own gifts that other people don't have, and then they acted upon those, and they worked to live their life with passion and with drive and gusto and all the positive things that you can come up with. That's my opinion, because I believe I signed a contract to do this and to talk to Tricia and Burchell before I was even born. Okay. Does that make any sense at all, or do I need to be on medication?
No. It does, and I think that we have a lot of huge similarities in there, and I know exactly what where you're referring to. And yes, I said if not me, it would have been somebody else. But why not me then? Because I am the better equipped. Perhaps I'm the better equipped being to handle that, and I do. Correct. I believe that I have a purpose. I have, but I also believe that there's different seasons, and I'm in this purpose right now, this season, this purpose right now. And there's a reason it didn't happen earlier, because I hadn't experienced all the things that I needed to experience yet. And right. So, if we talk, and I don't know, I don't trigger warning, right? Like, so if we look at sexual assault, like I was able to be emotionally agile enough to say, right, like, this had nothing to do with me. It was the bad act of another being. I was merely the vessel.
Right.
Right. And so that allowed me to heal and continue to be agile and shift and move through. Doesn't mean that I didn't still have to sit in and, work through the trauma, because I did. And I had some poor coping through some of that. Right. But I also always had the wherewithal to reel myself in when I was ready. And
exactly.
But yes, I believe that, that's why I say I wouldn't do my life over again differently than how I experienced it, because I believe everything that I've experienced was for a reason, for a purpose. And so that I had a conversation with somebody today. It was a very easy conversation. Like, I had a really crappy night's sleep last night. And, I haven't been drinking now for a chunk of time. But I had a couple whatever last night after golf, but then I slept. Is that why? 100%, right? Like, so easy. But because I can answer those questions now at this point in my life, when people come and they ask me those simple little questions, like, I'm there to provide the answers, so that they don't have to have
met them there.
They aren't blaming something else on it, or so they can get their answers right away.
Yep.
It's all part of why you went through what you went through, so that you then now can be a positive role model to people who say, I want to be like her. Well, you can't be like her, but you can be like you in a different way, but you can still have the positivity and the things that you talk about. And when we come back from this break, we have to take our halftime break. And by the way, Nick, I can't even pronounce it, Burchell. You're going to have to do this for me again. This is the Humanitarian Support Initiative from Kenya, and great program, Positive Talk. This will sharpen Kiberia slums community. We are happy listening to different guests. God bless Burchell and Kevin. So
Yes.
that is just awesome.
Slums. We love how they've made that so beautiful in a term that we take so negative. And let's just take the break, because I have a question that I'm holding on to. So go ahead, Kevin.
Don't forget the question. We'll be right back.
Okay.
You're listening to Brushwood Media Network, the best in syndicated talk, news, and entertainment shows.
The strength of staying kind from your friends at Positive Talk Radio. Kindness is not weakness. It takes real strength to stay kind in a world that often rewards anger, ego, and control. Being kind means choosing to act from your values, not your wounds. It means showing grace even when no one's watching. But kindness doesn't mean being passive. It doesn't mean letting people take advantage of your time, your energy, or your peace. You can be kind and still say no. You have a soft heart with firm boundaries. The strongest people I know are the ones who choose compassion without losing themselves. They've been hurt. They've been tested. And still, they choose to love and lead and to lift others anyway. Kindness is not about pleasing everybody. It's about honoring who you are and how you treat others, even when it's hard. So stay kind, stay human, and stay strong. And always remember this: be kind to one another, because each other's all we've got. And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald and Burchell. And Tricia, I want your opinion of that little piece. But before we do that, Burchell's got a question. I don't want her to forget it.
Yeah, no, go ahead and give us your advice or your feedback on that little commercial, and then we'll open up the conversation back into this question, because it might be something you want to explain.
Your question. Yeah,
I won't. I promise.
I'm
It's
all interested.
locked and loaded.
You know, when I hear that, I hear a lot of things, right? But, I hear acceptance, I hear grace, but I also hear boundaries, which I teach quite differently because mm, they are an extension of us, and it's a four-part system. It's an energy field. And so boundaries in my world, as mainstream USA would talk about them, are limits and limitations. But we have this energy. We have our external filtration system, our internal, our temporal, which is our energy, our emotions, our time, and then of course the physical, our environments. And so we have all of this. So when I hear that, be kind, I hear accept your neighbor for who they are, and give them grace for all of the things that are different about them than you. And I see so much rigidity, judging in the world. And if we would just shift it more into a stance of a learner, and operate through acceptance and giving grace, we would enjoy things much better. I mean, think about it.
Mhm.
When was the last time you were being tailgated or you got cut off by somebody while driving your car?
Kevin?
Right? Use this one often, because what is your first instinct is to get irritated, agitated, annoyed, frustrated, bothered. Well, okay, so let me ask you this. Have you ever accidentally cut somebody off? Accidentally turned right in front of somebody? Yeah. And were you like, oh gosh, wow, I'm sorry. Right. And it's like you made a mistake. So you've done it before. And so why are you judging so harshly the other person who is clearly, you know, making an error, having, oh, wow, oops. Or, you know what? If they're tailgating you and trying to get around you, why not just move over and let them go by? Because you have no idea. Perhaps their kid just got hit by a train and they're trying to get to the emergency room. You don't know. Sure, they could have stayed up late and they are running late for a meeting and it's all on them, but it's none of your business. It's literally a fleeting second, and we allow it to get in, come through that external boundary system, boom, and penetrate our soul. And then we attach it to everything else. That energy just goes and goes and goes. So, wow, why not live in acceptance? Why not give grace, right? Operate from the stance of a learner. And if it is something that is truly toxic for you, put it in your nunya circle. It's none of your business. You don't have to get involved.
I like that.
It-
You're none
Roll on
Exactly.
by. If you don't like
Exactly.
it, roll on by.
Yep.
Tricia, I got rear-ended last week. I was at a stoplight, and a guy was, I didn't tell you. And this guy came up behind me, and I said, he's kind of going fast. And so he hit the back of my, he and his girlfriend, they were having an argument on the phone or something. And so he hit me. And so I put on the emergency brake and thought, well, okay, I'll go talk to him and stuff. And normally the front of the car always gets the worst of it anyway. And so then I see him go zipping on by. And so I had a choice. I had a choice to make at that moment. I could go and chase him down and see if I could catch him, and then there might be even a bigger problem, like an accident, or I could do, which has become my mantra, Tricia, and I'm gonna have Rochelle say it because I tell her this all the time. Say it, Rochelle.
Let it be. Yes, just let it be.
Yes.
Let it go. Like, and you touched exactly why that's so powerful, because when Kevin taught me this, I was letting everything come in my energy field. All of it, everything, all at once. And I wasn't controlling it. I wasn't even aware of it, let alone did I have the knowledge to know how to manage it. And just those simple words of letting it be was, okay, if I let this be, it doesn't have to be a part of me. I get to let that be where it is and where it's going. What you said about the traffic, I had that exact experience just a few weeks ago. And I can see this guy going crazy. He's driving everybody nuts. And I was the last person to keep him from going where he was going. And I decided to do that. Let it be, get out of the way, let him do what he's going to do, and pray for his life to be safe and other people around him. And he sped off and turned into the hospital faster than I could have blinked my eyes. And looking at the guy next to me at that stoplight who wouldn't let him over, you could see that in him. That was like, I can't even put it into words, but you could see, I wouldn't say necessarily, I'm not going to say he felt guilt, because he didn't know necessarily what he was doing wrong, but it was like that that awakening of,
It was the
maybe I
shift.
just stalled. Maybe I just stalled him from getting his goodbye.
Yeah.
And why did I put myself in the middle of that when I didn't have to be a part of it? But I wanted to ask you this question because I'm seriously going to forget. My brain is running short. um, have you ever done this with yourself, or do you do this with the people that you work with? I've kind of started to do it myself. That's why I'm a little curious. Is to step into the person that you want to be already. Place yourself them and have them reflect back to you, type of thing. Like, if you were 10 years ahead of time, how would you look at this situation? How would you handle it? What would you maybe tell yourself if you don't have the knowledge to know how to handle it? Do you think that's helpful or no?
Yes. And I have done it anymore, right? Like I'm a very right here, right now, in this moment, going forward,
Yes.
kind of thing. And I can only be the best version of me that I have energetically available today.
Right.
And that's where I am in my journey. But before, yes, right? Because I couldn't even conceive, like, what do I want this to look like? And I want to
Mhm.
tie this into what we were talking about with the let it be in a second. But yes, if you say, like, I have no idea, yeah, I'll ask people, like, how would you rather
Mhm.
experience living? I have no
Yeah.
idea, but just know that this isn't it. Okay, cool. Right? Like, let's take a look at some things. So I did this exercise way back in the day. I don't know, however long ago, um, however long ago. And it was, who's your celebrity crush, right? And everybody's, it was a women's group, and everybody's picking these guys. I don't even know who. I picked Nancy O'Dell, and everybody looked at me really strange, and they're like, "Why?" I'm like, "Because although she's been through a lot of things and she talks about big, hard, heavy things, she does so with so much grace and poise and insight and wisdom, and there's just you can receive a lot from what she, so that's how it spoke to me. So I was like, I want, like, I'd like to have my version of that, and I'd like to feel like I can articulate insightfully my message, whatever that is, to whoever it is that's supposed to hear it. And
Right.
and I wanted to feel mm, less rigid and hard, and
Yeah.
dig my heels in to prove I'm right, kind of thing. So to your point, that let them, or let it be, or let it go, or let it, I love that. And I love that it's a big topic of conversation. I've noticed, because I've been working with people on the locus of control for 12 years, right? Like, this is a big part of the work that I do. And so now to hear people talking about it in their ways, let them, Mel Robbins, and everything. I love that, because it's planting the seeds. But most people don't know, okay, cool, let them. I'll let them. But what do I do with what's going on inside
Mhm.
of me? Like,
Yep.
where's that processing? How do I actually own that? How do I allow myself to feel that on a genuine level? Because I don't know how. Because I was raised to
Mhm.
be this mama bear who controls everything, right? I work with a lot of home front CEOs, we'll call it, right? And they're controlling everything, how the dishes are done, when they're done, the laundry, the chores, and the extracurricular activities, and they're running the show like it's an organization. And so to let go, especially when we start approaching that empty nest, like, that's a hard thing. So let them is very a hard concept for most
Yep.
people to
Yep.
incorporate. They get it, but to actually do it. So that's where, like, my program comes in, because it's that, again, the practical application of the psychological skill sets, tools, tactics, methods, modalities that allow you to add, edit, delete, change, shift, morph, make it your own, so it serves you in your life.
Mhm.
Because we all have different ways of finding acceptance and giving grace and being in the stance of a learner and learning how to be emotionally agile. And like, oh, just lost my job. How am I supposed to sit in this and move through it when I've got 4 mouths to feed and I'm the sole provider? Like there's a way to do that. There's a way to sit in and move through that from a behavioral and psychological perspective that allows there to be acceptance and grace and to be productive and proactive at the same time, so that we don't fall into that stress spiral.
Yeah.
Did I
And
answer
it's repetition. Kevin will tell you it's repetition. The first 11 months he told me this, just hearing him say it is what it took to actually understand it. Because when he first told me, I'm like, yeah, okay, I don't know what that means, but okay. And to start living it was completely different, and he saw me go through that tons, right, Kevin?
It was the funniest thing you've ever seen. What the hell do you mean? Just let it be. I gotta control this. I gotta do this. I gotta be part of that. And if this happens, Rochelle, you have no control over any of that. Just let it go. Let it be. I can't let it be. It's going, what about this? And finally, over a period of time. But Trish, I've got to ask you probably one of the most important questions in married life between a man and a woman, or and that and their kids, is how do you load the dishwasher correctly?
However they do it is correct. Okay, however they do it is correct. Let them do it, right? If you are going to go behind them and rearrange it, they don't need to know. You don't do it in front of them, right? And if they start it before you do it, then oh well. If something doesn't get clean, like rinse it out, stick it back in, it can go through the next time.
Constructive criticism is a great time for that.
Well, but with things like the dishwasher, you don't even need constructive criticism. It's like, hey, maybe switch with them and have them unload, and then they'll start seeing how you got so much more in than they did. Or wow, mom's dishes are always all clean. I don't have to rewash any of them. Oh, I'm going to do it her way. So, you switch with them versus try to tell them. Kids don't want parents to tell them anything. If you have not noticed, kids don't want you to tell them anything. And so when they're adults, then you have to just wait for them to come back to you, right? Like, so it's more about, learning how, and it's almost like parents need to learn motivational interviewing, right? Like those open-ended questions, like how do you ask the right open-ended questions to direct and guide without directing and guiding, that you get that insight that you need as a parent to understand why it is they're so drawn to whatever it is. And then let them try it, right? I don't know, they can't go to a party, right? I had somebody say to me, I want my daughter to have a healthy fear of me. And I'm like, do you really? Or do you want them to be, well, meaning when it comes to parties and drinking and, experimentation. I said, oh, do you really? I said, well, who do you want her to call when she's uncomfortable at a party because everybody's got a little bit more intoxicated than she's comfortable with? Who would you like for her to call? That's when kids run back. Because if she's got a healthy fear of you, it's not going to be you. And she's most likely going to sit there and endure it and might actually end up in an unsafe situation. So you might want to trust her, et cetera, et cetera. Because if she's going to experiment, she's going to experiment. So why wouldn't you just let her ask you about it, right? Like, oh, so-and-so said they're bringing mushrooms, right? Like, I wouldn't try it. But if you're gonna, right, like I might suggest, like a little tiny pinch, I don't know. Because they're going to do it anyway. So why wouldn't you educate them? Why wouldn't you, allow yourself to, and I'm not saying be a party to it, and I'm not saying condone it, but there was nothing my mom
But be a safe space for them, right?
Right. Yeah. There was nothing my mom was going to do to stop me. And, I wish she would have, taught me better to leave my keys on the counter when I went someplace to drive. And, so maybe I wouldn't have got 2 DUIs. I don't know. Right.
Well, and Tricia, the same thing
holds
true.
Take a taxi.
Or nowadays with Uber, I mean, you can order an Uber and
Yeah,
it's there
there's
in
no
2 minutes.
excuses.
Right.
And there
If a
really
man
are
will
no
buy you a drink,
excuses.
he better buy you a ride home.
Right. So of course I'm talking 40 years ago. So,
I know.
like, things were way
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
40 years ago, anyway, yeah, it was way different.
But it's like when the King County Police ended up in front of my house when I was coming home from school because I had had an unfortunate date with MD 2020 the day before,
Oh,
and which is a fortified wine. And my friends and they got really drunk and. Well, not that I didn't, but I escaped anyway. They didn't know it until the police came the next day. And my dad was sitting in his chair, and the guy said, we're here to talk to you about being intoxicated. And I said, what? And they said, drunk. And my dad said, don't get belligerent, young man. And he did that specifically for the cops, not for me. He wanted to. So anyway, when the cops left, and I was sitting there, and he was sitting there drinking a beer, by the way, and said, "Did you get
there we
sick?"
go.
Yeah, he said, "Did you get sick?" And I did all over the place, but I told him no, and he said, "Too bad." And that's the end of the conversation. That was not an appropriate conversation to have with a 16-year-old kid who the police have just left your house.
But if we give them grace, they didn't
Yeah,
know, right? Like, so if we look at our,
Yeah.
and Rochelle, you're considerably younger than myself and Kevin, but based on our, disclosure of how many years ago this was, right? Like, if you look at, our parents and their parents,
Yeah.
then you go, oh,
Yep.
okay, right? Like, they didn't know a lot of things. They didn't know a lot of things.
Forgiveness is where, yeah,
And it's
forgiveness
like,
has been
okay,
huge in that stage.
they were teaching, home ec and things like that in school. Nobody was worried about your emotional well-being. In fact, if you needed to see a therapist, you kept that hidden behind the front door and you swept it under the rug and didn't tell anybody, and nobody ever knew, and you weren't allowed to talk about it. I mean, when my dad, and this was a year before he was killed, when he went to treatment, we got in the U-Haul and went across. We went to Missouri for 3 months while he was in treatment, right? Like, we didn't even stick around, like, to hang out or help, right? It was like, nope, we're leaving, and we're not associating with that. And then we came back when it was over.
Yeah.
Strange, just different, right? Because we didn't know what we know now about mental health, and it was just, so there was so much more stigma then than there is now.
Yeah.
And now we
Well,
can
and
talk openly about anxiety and fear and depressive states and, things like that.
yeah.
Rochelle, go ahead and ask this question, and then I want her to get into what it is that she does and how it can be so helpful to people before we run out of time, which I can't believe this has gone so fast. Rochelle,
Yes,
go
we
ahead.
didn't even take our last break. This has
No, we
been
blew
way
right
too
through
much
that
fun.
sucker. We're not going to do that either.
Yes.
So,
No, really not a question, Tricia. I just wanted to add to that to really bring awareness. Like, we have the entire world right here on these cell phones. We have our everything. And you guys didn't have that back then. Rather than using it for a negative or what people would say is not so well, we have each other. We can call somebody right away. I need help, or something's not right, or whatever it is. We have where we can find people who actually want to help us. They care about us, and also to be something that can show our parents a different way of living. I don't think that's negative either. I've both of my parents have grown so much in their life away from what was normal to them, and it's really just adaptation, and forgiveness for themselves and from me. And we don't have to put a good or bad on it. We're human. This is life. Things are now different than they were, and we can take that as a positive and use it as progress for the future and grow together, rather than to have it break us all down, because we're seriously just wasting time. So
And judging, right? So the way I look at it is, sure, I grew up in a time where we got together face to face, and we
Mhm.
would get on our bikes to go find friends to play with.
I don't
And
even do that
instead
anymore.
of, this and, and so there's a happy medium in there. And I think that there's zero wrong with this. There's also zero wrong with wanting in-person connection, etc. Like we had back then, like we also didn't helicopter our children and get them so isolated, because we don't let them have the autonomy to go out and explore things because we're fearful they might scrape a knee. So, there's a happy medium in there. And I think it's, really just navigating what creates, right? Like a whole system for you. So when I do a whole health survey, right, like we look at 14 different categories that make up your life, right? Health in and of itself has 6 subcategories. And so people are like, oh, life balance is home, work, and health. No, it's so much more than that, right? Like 14 categories just to start. And so you have to, kind of look at that and see like what creates the right rhythm for you, for your unit, for your people, for your circle, for your environment, for your way. And then when other people's is different than yours, you just don't judge it. You accept it, right? And give grace for their way of living. And then you decide if there's any overlaps that make sense and are energetically in alignment or, whatever, right? And so I could go down a rabbit hole there, but you asked me a question.
So Tricia, and just to reemphasize your thing about how things were 40 years ago, or in my case, closer to 50 years ago. If I left home one day on my bike, got killed by a car, they'd be sad, but it would be like, oh, good, one less mouth to feed. And nowadays, it's a little bit different than that, but still, I want you to take some time now to tell us about your program and how somebody can reach you.
Well, my program, although very structured in its delivery, is very unique to each individual being. And so it's not a space where, it's, just come, do the work and go. It's not a one size fits all. The lessons, like I said, they've been proven to produce well over 95% life satisfaction rate for over a decade. So we don't mess with those. But it's about what do you need it for in your life and how can you utilize it to serve you. And so now that I'll stop being encrypted, right? Total emotional performance is what I aim to provide to all of my clients. Emotional agility is what everybody needs. And I do that by teaching a very advanced level of emotional intelligence, or the psychological skill sets and tactics that bring you to an advanced level of emotional intelligence that then allows you to sit in and move through your life, right? Even the hard stuff, right? The good, the bad, the ugly, the indifferent, and do it with the level of grace that you'd like, right? Like just so you can see yourself, moving through those hard spaces. And of course, I'm going to illuminate those habits. Habits are nothing more than, or nothing less than an addiction, just in disguise, right? Like I love to teach people why living without habits fixes everything. But because it really does. So there's a little plug. That is one of my favorite talks to give, is why living without habits fixes everything. And then of course there's oh gosh, what is it called? Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm going to be putting it out soon, but it's what ifs, control freakouts, and coping crashes. So the what ifs, the anxiety, the control, right? And the coping crashes. So those are always fun little, events to put together and have. But So I really take people on a journey. We go through it very systematically. It's in a very specific order that we start to dive in so that my clients can get to know themselves at a level deeper than they ever would before. But now they can handle stress, adversity, fear, anxiety, depressive states in a completely different way and without the reliance on things outside of them, alcohol, Ben and Jerry's, Amazon, people-pleasing, codependency, perfectionism, etc., to fix them, right? Like we go in and we make the tweaks and adjustments so that they can. And I'll never forget the day that my husband said to me, and this was years and years and years ago, but he looked at me, he's like, you just don't get derailed by anything anymore. I was like, yes, it's obvious, right? Like, yes, it is now apparent. Yay. And that's not to say I don't, have human emotion, because I do get angry, I get frustrated and, things like that, but it's that ability to just move through it. And we're all human. So I'm not here to say that I teach people how to just be happy all the time, because that's not it at all. It's just being agile enough, right, to sit in and move through whatever life brings to your table.
Exactly. And Trish, we've gone over time, so now we have to say goodbye now. Whether we want to or not, Rochelle, tell us her websites again.
Yes,
And
visit triciaparido.com and also turningleavesrecovery.com. Thank you so much for your time with us. We're just have to have you back.
yeah, Rochelle, we lost you a little bit. Say those again.
Yes, triciaparido.com and also turningleavesrecovery.com. Thank you again, Tricia. If you didn't hear me, we have you back. Thank you for everybody who's been listening this whole time. Take this message and do something with it.
There must be wind going on in Colorado because she's kind of breaking up. But anyway, Tricia, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being part of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald, where stories inspire and voices remind us of what truly matters. May today's conversation give you hope, courage, and a reason to keep moving forward. And just remember, till next time, be kind to one another, because each other's all we've got.